Hey, this is H1. We're going to be running it back with another episode talking about chess knowledge, chess wisdom, and chess understanding again. Today, we're going to be going over a game by Nordabik against Jan Nepo, and we are going to learn how to trap pieces. And I got one game which is a good example on trapping pieces and how astute that you have to be when you are playing a game of chess. Let's get started. Let me get this board up right quick. All right, that was quick enough. Let's get into this game. And I got my trusty stick too. Now, in this game, the white pieces, they started it off with this move d4. After d4, knight to f6. And this opening is super flexible for either side. Especially after this move, knight to f6, they can go to like the Nimzo Indian type of structure. They can go into a what is that called? The King's India defense with the black pieces. And then white, on the other hand, they can go into the London system still, the Kali system. They can go into a Jabava London, which I know the Jabava London has become a very popular opening. Now, after this move, knight to f6, knight to f3, and then we have the next move, g6. When you see the move g6, just expect it's either gonna go into like a Benoni defense or the King's India defense. Normally, black doesn't fianchetto here, but once they do, you should know the setup exactly what your opponent is trying to achieve. Now, after this move, g6, c4, trying to take care of those center squares right here, and they are going to be playing a hyper-modern type of principle, which is that they are going to be counterattacking in the center, not early in the game, but somewhere near the middle game, they are going to strike in the center with moves like maybe d6, e5, or d6, c5, maybe like a Grunfeld type of structure with this move d5 immediately. Now, after this move, bishop to g7, because we fianchetto to take control of this diagonal, one of the longest diagonals of this board, knight to c3, d5. After d5 in this position, we got a Grunfeld defense. And the Grunfeld defense is a very tactical opening. If you don't believe me, just look at the Grandmaster games and how much theory that they have to learn just to play this move d5 in this present moment. It is very sketchy. That pawn on d5 isn't protected by any other pawn. You can just take it, and white gains this center control, but we found out in recent years that black has enough activity, enough pawn breaks that they can destroy the center and have a good game against the white pieces. Let's figure out what white played here. After d5, e3, not trying to go into those lines of c takes on d5, knight takes on d5, e4, knight goes over, and etc. And some people don't ever take some people don't ever do e4, but they do the solid move e3 or take the knight. There's so many different variations of chess, and you're just gonna have to pick your own opening and be set. All right. After this move e3, castle king side, solidifying that they want to do the Grunfeld defense, and then we have this next move of bishop to d2. Very solid, and you're defending the knight, plus maybe, you know, you want to put the rook to c1 very quickly. After this move, bishop to d2, c6, going into like a Slav defense in this position, queen to b3, putting pressure on that b7 pawn, which is very important. Now that bishop on c8 cannot just develop very quickly. Black is gonna have to do something about that, which they do. They do this move queen to b6. Usually if the queen goes to b3, the queen goes to b6, but this was a little bit of an inaccuracy. The computer actually wanted black to do this move e6 in this position, but you know, queen b6 is a very human move. After queen b6, white doesn't want to trade queens. They want to keep the pressure on the opponent. Grandmasters do very well to keep the tension in the board, and one way is how they do that is by keeping the pieces on the board, especially the most powerful piece, which is the queen. Queen a3 was played next. After queen a3, bishop to f5, the game continues, and now black can develop that bishop to f5 since the queen is protecting that pawn on b7. You have to think about chess in this way, because if you don't, you're gonna never catch up to those players that you want to beat in the future. You're never gonna get to 2000 rated. You're never gonna be able to beat a Grandmaster one of these days if you're not thinking about what is my opponent's threat and what is my opponent trying to do. You gotta be 10 steps ahead of them all the time, all right? Probably not 10 steps. I'm exaggerating that fact. You don't have to be 10 steps, at least like two to three. 2 to 3 is good. After bishop to f5, rook to c1, developing pieces still because this is still the opening. Knight b to d7. And what are we doing next with the white pieces? In this moment, white decided to capture this pawn. C takes on d5, C takes on d5, and then we have this very passive move, bishop to e2. But their plan is very simple. They just want to castle king, and then maybe like reroute the bishop maybe to like d1, b3, etc. Like that bishop doesn't have to stay on e2. It is very passive. Grandmasters are really good at finding roles for each and every piece on the board. And the higher rated you go, the more accurate that you have to be at where your pieces are heading or what your pieces are doing. Now, C takes on d5, C takes on d5, bishop e2, rook f2, c8, and then you already know that we have to castle king. King safety is very important, especially beginners. As a beginner, you don't know anything about king safety, and that's why, like, when you have a coach, they say castle as soon as possible. That's a principle. You gotta get the foundation first before you start breaking the foundation up. Grandmasters seem like that they're breaking the foundation, but they're bulldozing through into the future of chess. Have you seen like two engines face each other? Like there's so many videos on that. They play crazy chess. After bishop to f8, wait a minute. After bishop to f8, knight to a4, and then we have the next move, queen to d8, because the queen was gonna just be attacked. I mean, there's not really that many squares that the queen could go to, but the d8 square, and they're not gonna go to d6 or e6 in this position. They would have been attacked even more if the queen was still out, and that's why black did the move, queen to d8. And then we have this move, queen to b3, where our queen was in the beginning, because we was keeping eyes on that pawn on b7, and that bishop is developed now, so they're either going to have to protect the pawn or push the pawn up, which they decided to protect the pawn with the rook c2 b8, and knight c3. After knight c3, e6, h3, and you already got the idea here. We're going to talk about this position. After h3, there's a question that white is posing on the black pieces here. That bishop on f5, look at that bishop on f5, and pay attention to the coordinates that I'm saying right now. As a beginner, you got to be really good at that. So that bishop, that light square bishop on f5, doesn't have that many squares. Not that many squares. And so doing this h3 move, white has the potential threat of doing this move g4. And you're going to see in this position how the game really goes sour a little bit because black didn't keep in mind of all of white's threats. And sometimes you forget about these simple forcing moves that the opponent can do. And you need to like break the barrier, think outside of the box. Sometimes breaking the principles, because I know that most of y'all don't want to push pawns in front of your king, but when you're getting material, if you're trying to get that moolah, you're gonna have to break some principles. And if you get material, that oversees a little bit of king safety. I'm not saying push all the pawns for material, and each position is different from another. In this position, since this is closed, we're able to actually do moves like g4 in this position. Knight to e4, put in a knight, centralizing it in the center. What are we doing next here? What do you think is the best move in this position? I already said it multiple times. Yes, we are moving gear. We're doing this move g4, all right? What do y'all think about that? What do y'all think about g4? That bishop is being attacked. Where is that bishop going? And black thought that, you know, maybe we could do capture and put the bishop on a safe square. But we're gonna figure out what happens here after this move g4. Knight takes on c3, which is pretty good. You know, this is allowed. White is still a little bit better than the black pieces, but I digress. Bishop takes on c3, and then we have a bishop to e4, putting that bishop on a good square. We do have a little bit of space on the king side, but this is all good. This is all safe, because once you can think like further, chess is not as simple as if you push pawns in front of your king, then you're worse. It's not that simple, because you can actually attack on the flank if the center is locked up, if the center is closed, all right? So g4 is not a big problem at this moment. It can become a big problem in the future if you allow this and you allow the opponent to get these rooks open on the D and E file, and yeah, it could be a whole mess. We don't want a whole mess. We want to keep it very contained and simple. We want to be in control of what we're doing here. After this move, bishop to e4, knight to e5 in this position, and knight to e5 have a double threat here. Not only are we putting pressure on this knight on d7, but we are threatening this move f3. And if we do this move f3 here, that bishop has no more squares to go. Black thought about this. They did this move. Knight takes on e5, knight takes on e5. Pretty good moves, right? Pretty good moves. Throwing ponies everywhere. Throwing donkeys, all right? Shrek style. Queen to h4 seems very dangerous for the white side, but you have to know exactly what you're getting into even before you do this move, knight to e5, because grandmasters think that far ahead. That is true, and that was only a few moves. I'm not saying the white side thought 10 moves ahead back when they played the move d4. I mean, we're only on move 20 here. Queen h4 seems scary, but then we got this next move, bishop to e1. Not the most accurate move, but it, you know, the position isn't bad enough where white is losing. Bishop to e1, queen takes on h3, and then we have this fascinating move after queen takes on h3, f3. f3. What is going on here? Isn't that bishop just trapped? Isn't that bishop just trapped on the e4 square? I could be crazy. I want y'all to double check with me in the comments down below. Tell me if that bishop is trapped. The next move that black did here was actually bishop to h6, even though the best move was rook to c8. Rook to c8, because after rook to c8, rook takes on c8, rook takes on c8, and then we have, actually let's go through it. Rook c8, rook takes on c8, rook takes on c8. White has this move, queen takes on b7 apparently. And let me just catch up with the board right quick, because I know some of y'all need this digital board. So rook takes on c8, rook takes on c8. Instead of taking that pawn, if we try to take the bishop here, if we try to do f takes instead of taking this pawn, even though that's the best move, if we try to do f takes on e4, this is still a draw because of a bishop to h6, and there's still so many threats that white is going to have to deal with. I mean, black got an active rook, they got this bishop that's going to be coming in pretty soon, and this queen on h3 is still a big problem. So we can't just hurry up and take pieces. Just because it's trapped, if we're facing a strong opponent, they're always going to find resources to come back in the position, all right? Let's put the pieces back. Y'all gonna have to wait on me. Like, I'm doing the best I can. Instead of doing this move, rook to c8, black immediately did this move, a bishop to h6. Let's go back to this fascinating move, f3, bishop to h6, which is a mistake. It's a mistake. White is winning, especially after this move, rook to f2. Very crucial move. You're guarding this second rank. If queen checks, we can guard with the rook. And then plus two, like, you know what I mean? There's no extra check here with bishop takes on e3. I know queen could take on e3, but you have to keep in mind of all your opponent's checks here. Queen g3, not the best move because of, let me scroll this down a little bit. Rook to g2, attacking the queen. Twice, bishop and rook is attacking the queen. Queen has to take this pawn on e5. They gotta take something, right? They gotta, because they're losing a piece. And not even taking the bishop even at this moment. No, we're gonna do this extra move, get our bishop active first. Let's not just take pieces. Chess isn't just about material, but it's about active pieces. If you're not activating your pieces, you're never gonna win the game of chess. If you're not activating your pieces, you are never gonna win a game of chess, all right? The bishop, the knight has to be centralized. They have to be doing something. And sometimes the threat is better than the execution. Bishop to g3, attacking the queen. The queen moves to f6 to a more passive square. F takes on e4. D takes on e4. And then the final move that happened here was rook to f2. After rook to f2, with white having a 3+ lead, black resign in this position. Black resign. White has all the active pieces. That bishop on e2 didn't even have to move. It moved one square and it was doing perfectly fine. That bishop on g3 is really good. It's better than when that bishop was on e1. Imagine doing rook to f2 with the bishop still on e1. Not a good square. Rook is still on the c file. These rooks is just doing nothing. That's why it was important for black to do this move rook to c8, at least to get one rook doing something, all right? Because there was some counterplay with the move rook to c8. But trapping pieces is not that easy to deal with, and especially if you're being attacked, if you're the one that has to defend and your opponent has the initiative. Defending in chess sucks. Defending in chess sucks. That's why it's really good for us to be on the other hand as the attacker. That's why we glamorize players like Mikhail Tal, Bobby Fischer, and etc. They was afraid of those players because they was great attackers. Hey, hopefully you learned something. I know you did. That's why you should check out another video and keep on following keep on fighting till the end. I forgot my ending quote. Keep on fighting to the end, staying focused in chess and in real life too. Peace. Yes, sir.